In the west end of Greater Toronto, the Country Club is a leafy sanctuary of golf that provides just about anything the modern player could want, in abundance. Celebrating its 50th year, the Country Club was originally known as the Board of Trade. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, it was the club to be at, as it was connected to the Toronto Board of Trade. Back in its heyday, it was the type of club where handshakes and corporate contracts were agreed upon the 18th green. Today, it's still a great club that typifies an old-school look, but demands a modern-day stroke to score successfully.
A wonderful facility. We've got an east and a west golf course that are maybe from today's standards, maybe a little bit short, but if you get on the back gold deck, it's a long course, tough enough for anyone to play. The east golf course is actually a little bit hillier. Years ago, there were virtually limited number of trees, and as you'll see in your shots today, the trees have all grown now, and it's a pretty good golf course. The front nine east is probably the more difficult of the four nines that we have. The Board of Trade had a huge corporate membership. We had like 1,600 active golf members and upwards of 20,000 Board of Trade members that limited but could get access to the golf course.
In the rolling hills of the Humber Valley, the Country Club opened in 1965 with the East and West 18-hole championship courses designed by acclaimed Canadian architect Howard Watson. The holes were later fine-tuned by Arthur Hills, Arnold Palmer's most famous design partner. The East course is wonderfully hilly, provides stunning views of the countryside, and plays through verdant valleys, offering the best in strategic parkland golf. In contrast, the West course wanders through dense hardwoods beside the Humber River, along rolling terrain. Both courses are peaceful walks, but demand solid course management and careful navigation around undulating greens.
West course is preferred by the members. It's flatter, so it's a little bit easier to walk. It's actually the more of a parkland style golf club than the East is. It has the river and a lot more trees. A little more character, I'd say, in the variety of holes that you play. Greens are always the most difficult part about playing at the Country Club, whether it's the East or the West. East golf course is a little more open than the West. It's also hillier, and the greens are more difficult. Some really nice, challenging par threes, especially on the front nine. Front nine East, I think, as I said, is a little bit more difficult than any of the other three nines that we have. Really, we play corporate events on our East course because it's a little bit easier. They don't lose the golf balls quite as much as they do on the West. But it's a fun golf course to play, as are both the courses. The beauty of Club Link from a member perspective is that you're able to play reciprocal golf and play the other golf courses. And that's probably the biggest benefit that a lot of the members from the Board of Trade days have really gained, is to be able to play somewhere like King Valley or Greystone, something like that. So.
Several holes on both the East and West course stand out, but there are a few that are true highlights.
Now the first one is number 8 West. It was actually the playoff hole that they used in the Carling World. It's probably the signature hole of the par 4, certainly. It's about 440, and it's been 440 since the 60s, so in those days it was a brute. It's still a brute for me to play, but for the younger bombers it's maybe a drive and a short iron. 11 West just is an elevated tee, and it runs through the valley, trees on both sides, an elevated green, and then we kind of go from there up into the top part of the golf course on the west side. Both 18s are kind of a blind drive over a hill, and then upwards towards the clubhouse. 18 West, a big pot bunker in the middle of the fairway at the top of the hill, which is not in play for the bombers, but in play for the majority of the golfers in that. So it's, even though it's short, again, typical of the holes here, it plays very long. Number 8 East, with the elevation, is truly spectacular. You can see the driving range in behind, and in particular, the clubhouse sits up on the hill. It's the highest elevation we have, probably. Looks down over the valley, the hole runs through the trees on the left, the big pond in front of the green.
The Country Club was one of the first Audubon certified golf courses in Canada. The course was designed and is managed still to this day with the goal of environmental sustainability in mind. That means the Country Club tries to impact land, water, wildlife as little as possible, while groundskeepers and members go about their business on this masterful 36-hole championship layout.
Since the beginning of the conception of the golf course, The environment has been very important to this club, the Toronto Board of Trade, and to the country club. So we were one of the first clubs in all of Canada to become fully sanctioned in the Audubon Society, which is all 6 categories. We continue this to this day. This club is still to this day one of the best clubs in the GTA. The environment is very important to this club, and we continue to make sure we meet their standards and exceed in their standards.
As a testament to its quality, the country club hosted numerous prestigious amateur and professional tournaments, including the 1967 Carling World Open, won by Billy Casper, as well as the 1986 Du Maurier Classic, at the time an LPGA Major Championship, and the Ontario Amateur Championship.
We hosted the 1967 Carling World Championship. At that time it was the biggest, certainly international golf tournament in the world. And I think the history would show that it's the second highest payout for golf professionals to play. I think it was Lee Trevino's coming out party. Billy Casper won in the playoff. What is 8th hole in the West now is number 15 in the playoff. 1986 we hosted the Du Maurier Classic with the ladies. At that time it was one of the major events. Pat Bradley won it, and again, we're just kind of moving into the residential area. We're circled by houses now. At that time they were just starting to build in that, so it was still out in the city, and parking on the old South Golf Course and that, so huge success. And we've hosted Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Nick Price, just probably about 50 of the top golf professionals of our modern era have played golf here. BJ shot 63 in his one and only trip around the golf course. So really marvelous there. And Palmer, with all his magnitude, I attended in 1967 actually a clinic that he gave here, and he played a round with George Knudsen, Gary Cowan, and Nick Westlock.
For 50 years, the country club has served the GTA as one of the great courses in this region. Its lush greens and massive fairways are amazing to play on. This is a facility whose history is rich, and with good reason. It's a course that has always been a treat to play on, and one that avid golfers will respect as challenging, fun, and naturally beautiful.